I am Marwan Cameron, and this is The Conduit. All right, everyone. It is 6 o'clock on this beautiful day in Kitsap County. It is 69 degrees, September 23rd. Beautiful Thursday. Glad that you all have decided to join us today. We have a special show. Dr. Gib Morrow from Kitsap Public Health. He has joined us once before, and he's coming back again. As you know, I've been sharing with you that I unfortunately contracted COVID. I don't even know if that is the right language. I received my second vaccine May 8th. And, 3 weeks ago, I ended up getting COVID. And I was quite sick. And so I thought it might be a really good idea to have Dr. Morrow come on from Kitsap Public Health and talk to him all things COVID and what to do in that situation, because we don't talk a lot about that. We don't see a lot of that in the news. So what does happen if you get COVID? What is the best way? What are some efficient ways for you to take care of yourself and take care of your family? So those things are really important. So let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to bring Dr. Morrow on. How you doing today, Doc?
I'm good, Marwan. Thanks for having me. It's nice to see you again. I'm glad you made a good recovery.
Yeah, I'm working on it. For sure. So I was pretty sick there for a minute. Now we seem to have a little echo here. Let's see if I can work on that before we get going. I'm not sure why we have that going on, but we don't want that to happen. And I don't hear it on your side. So how are you doing, Dr. Morrow? How's your day going?
Every day is an interesting day, Marwan. It's a mile a minute, and it's a rough and tumble ride. So I heard somebody call it riding the tiger. That's, I think, what we're all doing right now. But it's never a dull moment. And,
riding the tiger? That's a new one. I definitely haven't heard that one. So what I'm going to do is seem to figure out what's going on with this echo. So I'm going to ask you some questions. We have quite a few of them today. I don't know if you happen to have some headphones that you can plug in. I seem to be getting some. I don't know if it's on your side or not.
I don't have headphones. I'm wondering if, let's see here.
All right. Sounds like you muted yourself there. Yeah, I think it may be coming. You may have me turned up so loud and I'm getting the feedback off of you.
Is that any better?
All right, let's see. Oh, yeah, that's awesome. There we go. We got it. All right. So as I was saying, I think you can hear me backstage. I got my second vaccine, the Moderna, on May 8th, and was doing pretty good. It didn't really have many side effects from the vaccine. And about 3 weeks ago, I got COVID. And all of a sudden, I had a fever, I had chills, body aches, and just felt horrible, very fatigued. And what was really interesting, Doc, is I first went to SARS through the drive-through testing, and it said I was negative. So I was like, I'm pretty sick. I'm pretty sure this is COVID. Then got a home test, and that said I was positive. So I'm like, all right, I'm pretty sure it's positive. I knew where I got COVID from, and they had a positive test. So it's like, all right, it's COVID. And sure enough, right toward the end, about day 15, I went to urgent care because I was still feeling pretty bad, and I didn't know how the process worked. So I figured, okay, I'm done now, right? Maybe I don't have COVID anymore. But they said that I would show positive for the next several months, so don't worry about it. Does that sound right to you?
What was the date of your test or your infection, Marwan? Did you say May?
No, it was 3 weeks ago.
Oh, 3 weeks. Yeah. So with a PCR test, you can still test positive for quite a while after you've beat off the infection completely. So those tests are just super sensitive, and they will detect residual RNA if it's still present in your nose in any significant fashion. And so that is true. I mean, once you're 10 days past the onset of your symptoms, once you're feeling much better, your symptoms have resolved, you're unlikely to be contagious any longer.
So is that what I tell folks as I interact with either work or school or just out in public to say, hey, this is when I got it. It's been so many days. It's going to show up positive. I can't give you a negative test.
Nobody should be asking for negative tests. Yeah, that's no longer part and parcel of getting you cleared out of an isolation period or back out there in your workplace or whatever. It's more time based, but as long you do have to be feeling quite a bit better, um, and yeah, no need for follow up testing. The test is to identify the case. It's not to say you're no longer infectious.
Gotcha. See, and that's something, there was a question that wasn't on the list, but I didn't know that. So that's good info for me. All right, so let's jump right into it. So I took a bunch of vitamins and other things that I thought would be helpful for me. And I did some research online that I thought was reputable, John Hopkins and some other places. And so I'm just going to kind of go over this list of, I'm going to show them on screen, and then just give me your feedback on, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, or no, that's not great. So one were these, um, put this camera on here, were these zinc gummies. Get that in there. And I was taking 2 of these every day. I also had vitamin D3, and I do like the gummies because they a little bit easier to go down. Some vitamin C here. Oops, let's see. And these are 250 milligrams. I was taking two of everything is what I was taking as far as the gummies are concerned. I did only take 1 magnesium here. And what was great is all these things are at Walmart or your regular grocery store. They did say that I could take a little melatonin to help me sleep. I do have a prescription for a muscle relaxer, so I didn't really need that, but I got it just in case. Vitamin B12 was another one that I was taking, and again, I was taking 2 of those. And I have sarcoidosis, so I was taking K2 to help me to, I guess, absorb the vitamin D. I was taking quercetin. Uh, doesn't tell me what size that was. And then the last thing I was taking was NAC acetylcysteine. I'm probably saying that wrong. So I'm going to pull you back off mute because we still do have a little bit of a backup. Those were the things I was taking. Doc. What do you think about those?
I don't have any objection to those. I don't know how much they're helping. I do think vitamin D is a good thing in our high latitude, and although in the summer we probably get adequate amounts just through sunlight and other sources, but I didn't see anything there that would hurt you in any way as long as you're not taking mega dose. And I think vitamin D is probably not a bad idea as long as you're kind of keeping it at a 800 unit to 2000 unit sort of dosing. And same with B12. I don't think you can take too much B12, although there probably are some vitamins that you can take excessively, and you kind of fall off the wrong side of the risk benefit curve. But
that sounds pretty good as far as what I was taking. Now, I gotta say, many of the things I was already taking, as far as the gummies were concerned, the NAC and the quercetin was something that I added, and that was just based on, the research that I had conducted, and I just felt like that was kind of a safe way to, take some over-the-counter things to, kind of boost myself, and of course, they say get a lot of rest and get sleep. I probably failed on that, but I did the best I could on that. For me, when I'm up, because I definitely had insomnia and I didn't sleep during the night very often. It's just better for me to keep working. And so, you know, my loved ones and friends wanted me to rest, and they're like, "Oh, we could cancel this, we could cancel that." And it's like, no, the show must go on. Let's just keep it going. The best thing I can do is be productive. And so, they gave me the grace and allowed me to do that against their recommendation, but that is what I did. So the other thing that happened is I went back to urgent care, as I was saying, on day 16 to get a test done because I didn't know what the procedure was. Would I get a negative test? Would I get a positive test? How am I doing? I still didn't feel great, but I knew I was past that 14-day mark, right? And you're saying 10-day mark. So that's what I did. And they gave me this sheet. And it basically said, hey, you may not gain your sense of taste or smell back for up to 3 months. You may have, a cough for a while, which I did, but now my cough seems to be going away. You may be fatigued. And so it had a list of all these different side effects that I might still contend with. So I still have the fatigue. I barely have a cough now, early morning, late night. I do get winded really quick, and I still cannot. I got my taste back, and I can only smell probably, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes out of the day at best, and sometimes things don't smell too great. So, what are your thoughts on that, Doc?
Those are classic symptoms. Yeah, there's no two ways that you had what we call a breakthrough COVID case. And I'm just glad you got vaccinated, Marwan. I think you would have been much, much, much sicker if you hadn't. The Moderna vaccine in particular seems to be the best of the bunch, just a little bit ahead of Pfizer, which is a little bit ahead of the Johnson & Johnson in terms of the protection that they confer. But your symptoms are classic. We know that uh, of people that get sick enough to land in the hospital and survive their infection, half of them are still experiencing those symptoms that you just ran through up to a year later.
A year.
It's really important to know that COVID infections are vascular events. So your blood vessels themselves get impacted by it. That's why we see the cardiac issues that happen, some of the neurologic issues, the loss of taste and smell is probably a neurologic event. You see people that have a significant degree of brain fog or that show long-term changes on their brain MRI scans. We know that a third of veterans who get significant infections wind up with some degree of kidney dysfunction down the road. So this infection is nothing to thumb your nose at. It's the real deal, and I'm just so happy that you were vaccinated when you got this, Marwan, because we're seeing a lot of people under 50 getting hospitalized right now. Probably a quarter or thereabouts people who are hospitalized are under age 50. That's in Kitsap. That's a really concerning issue. And yeah, and people fight this thing for long term. We don't know what the long term outcomes are going to be, in terms of what having COVID as a pre existing condition is really going to look like for people. We're going to keep learning more and more about it. But your experience is pretty classic, to be honest with you. And it's going to be something that I'll be curious to hear about as you continue to recover. I do think you'll make a good recovery. You may not be 100% next week or even next year. We do know that there's probably some scarring of the lungs that happens a little bit in the more significant cases, but yeah, it's the fact that you're getting better is good news. just the same usual stuff. Get a lot of sleep. Do what your mom told you to do. Eat right, sleep, kind of slowly begin your regular fitness programs, and you'll keep getting better. But
So, Doc, let me tell you a quick story. So, when the vaccine started to come available, we had the very much the same concerns that, some folks are even still talking about right now. And it's come up too quick. How do you study these things? And these things were never important before, but now, it's pressing and it's crucial. And so I was against the vaccine in the beginning. And so it did take research and talking with trusting doctors like yourself. I have a internal medicine doctor that I've been working with for I think more than a decade now. And it's like, look, with sarcoidosis, which affects your lungs, you're morbidly obese, you have high blood pressure, whatever you may think about the vaccine, and then kind of explained it to me. The benefits far outweigh the risk. Everything has some percentage of risk to it, but when you're weighing those things on balance, it just the scale isn't even close. It's a good idea for you to get vaccinated. And so, that is what helped me to make that decision. And I'll tell you, Doc, my whole board, everyone was against the vaccine. And once I decided to make that decision and we had that conversation, everyone else on my team ended up getting vaccinated. So it sounds like you believe I made the right decision.
you absolutely made the right decision. We know in Kitsap that in the last 30 days, the likelihood of getting hospitalized is 25 times higher for unvaccinated people below the age of 60. So if you're under 60 and you're unvaccinated, you are 25 times more likely to wind up in the hospital than your vaccinated next door neighbor.
Wow.
And when you wind up in the hospital, that means you're sick. Let's face it. We're in the era of drive-through, gallbladder surgeries, and people don't wind up in the hospital if they are not really, really, really ill these days. And the people that are winding up in the hospital are staying there for a long time. They're getting really sick. They're winding up on ventilators. Trust me, the last thing you ever want is a tube down your trachea to assist your breathing. And there isn't anything that's highly effective once you get into that stage. So we know how effective the vaccines are. They work. They work unbelievably. They're a modern miracle, and they're as safe as they come. It's interesting, we hear all this kind of buzz about myocarditis. Take that as an example. So the highest risk group of folks for getting that from the vaccines are young males who are in their, kind of 15 to 30 range. And perhaps 40 out of every million of young males in that age group may wind up with a mild case of myocarditis from the vaccine. But if you get COVID infection itself, the likelihood is 10 times that. So you're not only way more likely to get COVID than you are if you're vaccinated, but you're much more likely to get a more significant case of myocarditis and the cardiac issues. These vaccines are safe, Marwan. I'm looking forward to getting my booster. I'm not too worried about it because I know I'm pretty well protected with the first round. But when my number's up, I'll do what I did last time around, which is run, not walk in to get that shot. And I think healthcare providers who are following the science, like your doc, who gave you wonderful advice. I'm so happy to hear that, because that is absolutely what people need to hear from their trusted messenger, their primary care doc, their internist, that human who knows their health issues best. But at a population level, there is virtually nobody that I would advise against getting the vaccine, other literally than somebody who's had an immediate allergic or anaphylactic shock-like reaction to that first time they got an mRNA vaccine. And then I tell them to go get the Johnson & Johnson. So there you have it. That's the best advice any doc can give any human being on the planet at this time. And we got the vaccines; they're ready to go. We just need to get folks in every person to come and get it. It really is a gift to yourself and to your family and to the broader community and to the economy as a whole. It's the end game on getting us all out of this pandemic, and you were wise to get yours.
I appreciate you saying that for sure, and we're definitely happy with it. Another question kind of popped up in my head. Let's say that I wasn't vaccinated and I got COVID. How soon after I contract COVID could I get the vaccine if I wanted to get vaccinated after?
Yeah, once you're better, Marwan, once you're out of your isolation period, you can go get it then. We were telling people early on when vaccines were in limited supply that if you could wait 30 days or sorry 90 days after that infection, you probably had reasonably good protection for that first 90 days. But now that we've got vaccines available, once you're better, go get it, I think is the right answer. People that have had a prior infection and then get vaccinated have excellent protection. So going forward, they're in good shape.
That's
And
me.
you know what, you're probably you got your own little booster dose there, Marwan. So you should be well protected. And I think one way this whole thing may evolve is that as we get people vaccinated and as we gain immunity to this novel infection, this is just like what smallpox did to the Native Americans when it came through. Because there was no pre-existing immunity in that population, it wiped them out, and it's wiping people out in our community as well. But as we gain more and more protection, and this thing keeps circulating, who knows? A couple of years from now, we may just get a nose full once a year, and it's the sniffles, and we're good. And that's the way this thing gets into the rear view mirror. But until we get people fully vaccinated, we've got a really severely strained healthcare system. And I'm going to be talking to our local health board about that uh, next Tuesday. I would encourage you to watch that meeting. It'll be pretty interesting.
Oh, absolutely. And, I'm feeling like I'm super safe now. I've got the vaccine and I've made it through COVID. So I should have plenty of antibodies. And, I was concerned with going into flu season and into fall and winter, and just watching the numbers rise. So I actually kind of feel lucky that I'm on the other side of this and feel like, hey, I can make it through the winter and I'm gonna be okay. But let me ask you about ivermectin, the human kind. Some folks that care about me and that I actually trust, they were actually suggesting ivermectin to me. And so I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Bad idea. It's a horse dewormer. It does have use in humans for certain parasitic conditions. There's no good theoretical reason that it would work. There's no good science-based evidence that it does work. It's potentially dangerous. And you remember hydroxychloroquine? So that's a anti-malarial drug. You know what? That doesn't work for viruses either. We know that. We know it was actually harming people. And so there's this circulating set of misinformation, or what's even worse and more concerning, disinformation, because it is intentionally set to feed people the wrong data and the wrong information. So with ivermectin right now, there are warnings against taking it. I watched a Washington State Department of Health Medical Commission meeting yesterday on how the licensing board in the state is going to deal with doctors and providers who are providing their patients with misinformation or disinformation. And there are going to be potentially some really significant issues with respect to that. So docs that are writing, for example, false attestations for people to not get vaccinated or to not wear a mask, or recommending things like ivermectin, are going to be facing disciplinary action by the state licensing board. And that medical commission is comprised of practicing doctors who are talking to patients, who are dealing with these people in the hospital, who are looking at the data. It's not a governmental so much as a colleague, a bunch of colleagues who are making these rules, and they're making good rules. So ivermectin, don't take it.
All right, I appreciate
You're
that.
not a horse, and you don't look like you have worms.
So if someone gets COVID, like me, whether or not they were vaccinated or not, uh, what suggestions do you have for them to take care of themselves?
Sorry, one more time with that. So folks that have been vaccinated or don't.
Yeah. So if whether you're vaccinated or not, if you contract COVID, what are some things that people should do to take care of themselves? Like, what advice do you have for them?
Yeah, first and foremost, make sure that infection ends with you. Okay. If everybody had a personal R naught, that's the reproduction number. That's how many people does each person give it to. If everybody's were zero, we'd be done with this thing. So let it end with you. Don't give it to any other people. Take that 10 days to baby yourself, stay in your room, have your partner, or your friend, or your mother, or your grandmother, or your daughter bring you your meals. Wear a mask in your home. Don't even go out into the common areas of your home. Wash your hands, get a lot of sleep, eat your chicken soup and your good quality, healthy foods. Let your body do what it can to battle this thing off. I'll tell you what, I got this thing early on in February. I traveled to India where my daughter was going to school, and she didn't want to come home, but I saw the writing on the wall, and I got her to come home right before Modi locked the country down. A bunch of her classmates wound up in India for the next 6 months. But she came home, and on the way home, I'm quite confident I got COVID infection. One of the things that I personally do, and this is an interesting, but it's anecdotal, is that I found that when I was laying in bed, I wanted to be laying down in the prone position, and primarily because when you get a upper respiratory infection, if you're laying on the back, you wind up having this kind of micro aspiration of the stuff in your throat and your airway back into the back of your throat and potentially back down into your lungs. I do that. I try to stay in the prone position while I'm asleep to prevent that from happening, because I don't want it in my lungs. I want to maintain good cardiopulmonary function for a very long time. And it's interesting, there is now a lot of data you hear about people who are really severely sick. The hospitals have orthopedic teams come in and do what they call proning people, which is when they're on a ventilator and very sick, putting them down. And a lot of that probably relates to just the mechanics of how people are getting ventilated and how the airway work. But I mean, those are the kind of things. There's a little bit of data maybe about using, there are some over-the-counter hydrogen peroxide based mouthwashes, mouth rinses. Those may or may not help a little bit in terms of just decreasing the viral load. But at the end of the day, don't give it to anybody else. You give it to your family member, your friend, and they give it to somebody else. And that's how the whole exponential growth thing happens. So please, if you get COVID infection, stay home, baby yourself, don't go to work. It doesn't matter how bad I mean, if you're asymptomatic, or if you just have the sniffles, if you think it's the allergies, if you have COVID, or you think there's any possibility of having COVID, get tested, and if you got it, stay home. Don't give it to anyone else.
It seems tough too, if you're asymptomatic, hey, I feel great. And, you find out that you have it because maybe someone else was around you. And it's like, well, I can go around, but you're right. You got to try to get in control of it. I'm glad everyone was able to join us today. We're having a conversation with Dr. Gib Morrow from Kitsap Public Health. He's answering a bunch of questions for us and clearing a lot of things up. And, it's just like more questions are coming. So I actually heard, so I have sleep apnea. And so I wear a CPAP. And I was told that it was actually a good thing that I had my CPAP, and I also have a mechanical bed, so I actually slept sitting up with my CPAP on. What are your thoughts on that? Is that a good idea if you're not prone?
Yeah, with sleep apnea and with CPAP, the primary thing is to just keep that airflow going in and out and in and out, and that's what the CPAP does. It kind of provides a air splint so that you don't sort of block off your airway back, where the tongue meets the roof of your mouth. And sitting up and doing that, I think, will keep a good airflow in and out and in and out, and that's kind of the whole goal with that. But yeah, you did what you need to do, and I think you got good advice from your docs in that regard.
Oh, that's awesome. And I gotta say, I actually felt like I didn't sleep much, but the times that I did sleep with the CPAP on, I did find that it did help me. I was able to get, restful sleep for that time that I was asleep. So I don't know if it made it easier to breathe or what the deal was, but it was a benefit. It wasn't a negative for me. So what advice do you have for folks that are like me now that are post, COVID? What kind of things should we do to take care of ourselves now that we're on the other side?
If you're unvaccinated, get vaccinated. Uh, Gradually increase your physical activity, making sure you stay, you know, active to a certain extent. Do what you can to get a good night's sleep. Keep your stress levels down. Continue to wear masks and facial covering. There's no question whatsoever. The data is absolutely sealed, and it's not up for debate that face coverings really do protect spread of the infection and keep you from getting as well. Those are really kind of the primary things. And yeah, just lead a healthy life. Yeah, don't smoke, uh, and don't do anything else that's going to contribute to uh, the injury process. Just let your body heal up, and take it a little easy and take it slow and gradual.
All right, absolutely. So, for folks that don't live alone and have multiple people in the house, if there is a COVID event, what's the best way to keep other folks safe? You talked about it a little bit, but it sounds like that could be challenging, especially if you have kids that, want to be with mama or want to be with dad, but the dad has COVID or the kids have COVID and, they need loving. And, what are some recommendations there?
With Delta circulating right now, if people aren't able to really fully keep apart from each other, uh, all those household contacts should be assumed to be infectious. They are technically close contacts, and with that, and they would be really required to not go to school, for example. They shouldn't be going to work. They should go and get themselves tested, and they should do that at a time frame at which it's most likely to show positive. You saw that the way that can play out sometimes. You may not have a high enough viral sort of load up the airway to test positive the first time you get a test, or other things may happen. I think wearing facial coverings in the household is pretty important. Really trying to, if at all possible, maintain that degree of separation, because you don't want to infect your family, and you don't want to just keep spreading this stuff around. We got to, again, just stop the infection with each and every one of us that gets it.
Yeah, absolutely. What advice would you have for folks that have kids in the house? Especially the younger they get, it may be a little bit more difficult for them to articulate what they're feeling, what their symptoms are. And so, what are some of the best things to do? Like we can take, vitamins, and there's adult vitamins, but that may be very different for children.
So for any kid over 12 and over, the best thing to do is get them vaccinated. Get them vaccinated now. Right now in Kitsap County, our case rates overall are flattening out a little bit. They're actually going down in people over, what is it? I think it's over 18, but they're going up in kids, 0 to 18-year-olds. The case rates are on the climb, and a lot of that has to do with going into school.
Right.
So we do know that the Delta variant spreads more readily through kids. We've had 5 or so school outbreaks with closures already. That's really rough on kids, and it's rough on families, and the back and forth and the closures and the sort of telework, teleeducation is a tough one. But so really, first and foremost, get your kids vaccinated. Give them that gift. You will not regret it. It's absolutely the right thing to do. It's safe. It's effective. We're really optimistic that data that Pfizer has already submitted through the FDA is going to result in approvals for both the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines. Those are both the mRNA vaccines. As of hopefully October, it'd be wonderful if we could start getting kids vaccinated by Thanksgiving and early, maybe even Halloween, and getting into the Christmas, New Year, other holidays at the end of the year. So get those kids vaccinated. Have a mask up in school. Set a good example. Kids don't really mind wearing masks. That's a parental problem. And if you got parents who are modeling that and just making it an expectation, kids can get used to all sort of crazy things. And wearing a mask is unfortunately currently one of those crazy things that kids need to do. So, we want them to stay active. We want them to keep learning. We want them to be in the classroom. And to the extent that we can do those kind of basic things, just a little bit more space between them. And, slumber parties, not a great idea, unfortunately. But once we get those kids vaccinated, they'll be doing that again as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. My daughter, we talked to her about, what's going on, and she pays attention. She'll be 10 here on the 5th of October. And she's like, well, Dad, I'm really tall. So can we just say I'm 12 and get the vaccine now? So she just wants to get the vaccine. She doesn't want to miss school. That's really important for her. And so, thank you for answering the question. Kind of jumped right into that as far as the kids vaccine. Is there any update that you can give us on the booster? And then also, we've heard a little bit about this Mu variant that's kind of circling around, but I haven't heard much about it, lately. So maybe this thing isn't really going to catch fire. So, just your thoughts on that.
Well, first of all, the booster. So the FDA has given their approval for boosters, and the advisory committee at the CDC also did that as of today. So that's kind of hot off the press. I'm sure it'll be in the newspapers tomorrow. So boosters are good to go for folks who are 65 and up, or and who are who in at least I think 28 days from their last vaccine, or I'm sorry, what is it? All right. Anyway, their boosters are good to go. I'll get to the specifics about that. So everybody 65 and older, as well as people that have been deemed to have a high risk condition. So you'd be eligible at this point. If you just had infection a couple weeks ago, I don't think you need to rush in there and be the first guy in line. But go get it when you're feeling up to it, and I will certainly do that as well. It's interesting that the FDA had listed and approved the boosters for a number of what they were calling high-risk occupations, like healthcare workers, grocery store, for example, maybe restaurants as well. But this advisory committee kind of rolled that back a little bit. So just at this point, the boosters are good to go if you're over 65, good to go if you have a high-risk condition. And that probably is a quick call to your doc to say, should I get a booster or not? When we start giving them, which is in all likelihood going to be next week, we'll be generous and we'll err on the side of giving folks boosters if they fit the bill, if they think they're high risk, if they're over 65. With respect to the variants, we saw our first Delta in Kitsap in June, and it's pretty much 100% of everything that we're sending out for that genomic testing and that higher level of what we call genomic surveillance. So we haven't seen the mu variant here in Kitsap yet. It is, I believe, it's in 49, if not all 50 states at this point.
Oh, wow.
But it doesn't appear to be as transmissible as the Delta. So the Delta just keeps elbowing everything else out of the way. And we're hopeful that with that mu variant, which is potentially a little bit more concerning with respect to its the degree to which the vaccines protect you against it, hopefully we can kind of contain it through those other what we call mitigation measures like masking and distancing and isolation and testing folks aggressively and on the front end of their infections.
So we have a comment from one of our viewers, Miss Christina. She says, "Good evening, Dr. Gibb. Most important question: how do you grade Marwan on taking care of himself?"
Well, I think I would probably give Marwan about a B. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, B plus. I'd be generous with you, Marwan.
Oh, well, thank you, thank you. They were big on me resting, and I just, it was just really hard for me to do that. I just got to keep going, and there were a few days where I would do a podcast and literally go and lay down. I was just that wiped out, but I couldn't tell them that because they would shut me down.
Yeah, no, I might give you. I'd probably give you just a straight B.
Oh wow, now it's going down. She says honest. So, I wasn't the most honest person about how I was feeling, but I don't like scaring folks. And then at the same time, like I said, I can't sit and stew. I need to be doing something. So she says, see? So my last question for you, Dr. Morrow, and again, I really appreciate your time and coming on. Where can we get information on COVID and, vaccine locations and just kind of the latest and greatest information so we can stay informed?
Go to the Kitsap Public Health District website and just spend some time poking around. We've got so much information on there, you wouldn't believe it. There's a Washington State Department of Health vaccine locator.com, I think it is. That's another good one. So the Washington State Department of Health COVID website, as well as the Kitsap Public Health District website, I would encourage you to go. And just when you have a little bit of time, look at the numbers, look at the trends. We have some fascinating little newer displays. You can kind of toggle things around a little bit. You can see how the case rates compare for fully vaccinated versus unvaccinated people right here in Kitsap. We can see which part of the counties are have the highest disease activity. You can, I think, probably guess what they are. You can identify, where we've done a good job of getting folks vaccinated and those populations, those ethnic and racial groups that we need to keep really trying to work with to make it happen. The health district has just really a great wealth of information, and you can get those vaccines pretty much anywhere at this point. They're in essentially all drugstores. We've still got our high throughput clinic over at the old St. Michael's Bremerton Hospital. We got a bunch of other folks that are giving them. We'd prefer not to be given monoclonal antibodies. You probably heard about Regeneron. Our former president got that. It used to be that only presidents could get it, and then it was presidents and governors. But now it is coming in limited doses. But we don't want to have. We would rather be given vaccines. They work better. Please get yours. If anybody needs any help whatsoever at getting a vaccine, all you got to do is call our health district. We got people who staff on the phones who can tell you where to go, get you booked in for a visit, and we want to try and make it as easy and as comfortable as possible. We've got most all docs in the county starting to give them in the office. And I hope that when you go to your doctor, Marwan, that they've got signs up front. I hope that reception staff says, hey, are you vaccinated? Or would you like to talk about it with your doc? I hope that medical assistant who takes you back and does your blood pressure says, hey, are you vaccinated? Would you like to talk to your doc? I hope your doc comes in and says, hey, are you vaccinated? Would you like to talk about it? And at the end of that conversation, if you're unvaccinated, if you leave with a shot in your arm, hallelujah. It's just the way this needs to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And as always, G2's partnership in this is providing free transportation for anyone that wants to get the vaccine. So whether you want the vaccine or you want information, you can give us a call at 360-373-3000. We will pick you up. We'll take you to the donation, to the location, get your vaccine. We'll wait the 15-20 minutes that they want you to stick around, and then we'll take you back home. And one benefit from that is, if you happen to need to go to Walmart or grocery shopping or something like that, and that's where you get your vaccine, then, you get a free ride and get your shopping out the way. So, take advantage of that. There's a ton of resources out here. Folks want to be supportive. Like I said, I really appreciate you, Dr. Gibb, for coming on and being willing to talk and just answer these questions. And I'm going to give you the final word.
Well, thanks for having me, Marwan. I really appreciate what you're doing, and it's always a pleasure. I thoroughly enjoy talking to you. I really appreciate you being on our equity commission, and as you know, Kitsap Health District has made a formal declaration that racism is a public health crisis. I think that's an important thing, and we're starting to really develop those kind of programs that are going to minimize those disparate health impacts on the people that have been hit the hardest historically through a lot of different just existing social structures that don't always kind of help people out. And I think this whole educational aspect of what you're doing right now is just the most important piece of all of that. And so any opportunity to get the word out and to talk to you, Marwan, I will jump at.
Well, I really appreciate it. It is going to take a whole team for us to get to a point where, everyone wants to return back to normal. I don't know what normal is going to be, but in order for us to get there, we've got to work together. So whatever part you can play, it's all about being active. And I love that, Kitsap Public Health, made that declaration, and sitting on that committee is powerful to be invited in to see it actually go forward, right? A lot of agencies will say, hey, this is what we're about, and it's just words, but Kitsap Public Health is really doing that, and so I'm excited to see that, but we also have to be a part of it, right? So we can't just say, hey, this is wrong and this is an issue. Get in there and participate. You don't have to be an expert. You just have to have the desire for change. So thank you, Dr. Gibb, for coming on. For Dr. Gibb, I'm Marwan Cameron. This is The Conduit. We will see you tomorrow with our interview with Tracy Flood. All right, everyone. Have a good night. Bye-bye.